Hello, optimizers. This is JJ Ruescas. This is another episode of Optimizing Me, the podcast where I bring top experts in different areas of human optimization so that we can learn from them their stories, their tactics, their mindset, and help us also accelerate our own personal development. Today's guest is a leading authority in neuro-linguistic programming, building on a rich legacy that blends multiple schools of thought in spiritual and personal development. Throughout his career, he has empowered leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals to unlock their potential by mastering the art of effective communication. His teachings emphasize the importance of leading ourselves first by transforming our internal dialogue, an essential foundation for becoming influential leaders to others. By integrating the powerful principles of NLP, he offers actionable strategies that drive both personal growth and leadership excellence. Specifically, in my case, since I met this man, his work has transformed completely the way that I used to relate to myself and relate to others. So it's a huge honor for me to have him finally here. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Matt James. Dr.
Thank you
Matt.
so much. I appreciate you, JJ, so much. Thank you for having me on the show. I really do. I really do
My
appreciate it.
pleasure. My pleasure. I'm glad that we're making it happen. Now, for the audience, let's dive into the gist of it. Who's Dr. Matt and what is NLP?
Well, okay, so my dad got into this field back in, I think it was the early 80s, late 70s, and met the people that actually created it. And he was in business. He worked with entrepreneurs. He was doing business consulting. He actually founded our company back in 1982 with the idea that an entrepreneur, someone who wants to be successful, a person that wants to take the concepts and make it actually reality, optimize it and bring it in, that there's got to be a certain mindset behind that. So he was always fascinated with the mindset. So he did some trainings actually with people like Tony Robbins back in the early 80s, and he immediately pivoted and went, this is actually very powerful. These set of tools and techniques help out so much. We continued our business consulting through the early 90s, and we transitioned into being a full-time seminar and training company back in the probably early 90s, around 92, 93, when I came on board with the company. As a kid, my dad took me to the trainings. I asked to go, actually. Walked on Fire with Tony Robbins when I was 11, learned Neuro-Linguistic Programming at 13, became a master practitioner of it, did high school, did the college thing, came back and worked in this industry. And we as a company have really had a focus on helping people with their career, helping people as entrepreneurs. How do you take all that mindset stuff that people talk about and put it into how? Like, what do you do with this? How do you make it work? I went back to school in my 30s, became a doctor of integrative psychology. That's a whole study of how the mind affects the body and therefore your actions and therefore your results. And have pretty much dedicated my entire life to doing this. Been teaching since the late 90s and love it. And love that you were there in the trainings. I remember you so much, JJ, coming up and asking questions, and you were always just so dialed in and so focused in on how do I take these content, like this content and this information, and how do I make it applicable? Like, what do I do with it? Because tools of the mind are very powerful, but they don't do anything unless you can actually do something with it. And NLP, just to answer your question, I can explain NLP in a short sentence. Most people, it takes them forever. NLP is a study of how successful people get their results. That's it. That's plain and simple. And I'm old school NLP. I did my first trainings in the 80s, and it's literally, let's look out here at the environment and how are people right now thriving, and let's emulate them and not emulate the people that aren't thriving. It's just that simple.
Now, for people that are listening to this or maybe are watching this one, what are the key principles within NLP itself? By the way, the gist that you gave us, it's clear now. And for many people, they're going to start asking, wait a second, I didn't think ever about this. So what are the main principles of NLP?
Well, the interesting history of NLP is that if you look at the best business consultants in the 80s, they were using NLP. If you look at the best motivational speakers, I mean, Tony Robbins, let's put him at the top of the list, motivational speakers, he was trained in NLP first and foremost. The best coaches, when coaching came around in the early 2000s, the best coaches, they were trained in NLP. And so NLP is the study of how do you look at how someone is doing something? Like, how do you emulate what someone is doing and incorporate it into what you're doing? So one of the basic principles of NLP is how do you be successful? And success doesn't mean just in career, it means in everything in your life. It means in your family, your relationship with your kids. You know, one of my kids, he works for the company now. And JJ, when you did the trainings, I think he was graduating from
He
college.
was graduating. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he graduated. He graduated from college, and now he's a part of the company. He's a part of the company, helps out with marketing. Okay, well, in marketing, you have to look at what are other people doing and how are they being successful and emulate that rather than coming up with your own thing. I mean, that is a core principle of NLP. And that is rather than thinking that you should invent something, how do you emulate what someone else has done? So I have a master's in business, and one of my professors got up in front of the room and he said, how many of you in here have heard that 80% of businesses fail in the first year? My hand went up. He said, can anyone here tell me why they failed? My hand went up. He called on someone else. I would have said the same thing. The other person said they have no plan. And he went, actually, you're wrong. If you're in business, if you're doing something, you have a plan. Your plan doesn't work, you're in the 80%. He said 20% of businesses succeed because they emulate a plan that actually works. They find someone else. And I leaned back and I went, that's NLP. That's literally NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. That is the whole principle of it. Let's figure out how people who are successful do something, and let's emulate that rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Plain and simple. It's that easy.
And for entrepreneurs and leaders, that is key because even though we may be uh, changing the context of or the environment, probably there is someone who had already done something similar, right? Now, another thing, and I wanted to ask, this is not only simply what I call monkey see, monkey do, right? The monkey see,
Right.
monkey do.
No, it's not. It's
This
not.
person is doing that, we do that. But it is also what's happening here
Correct.
in their
Correct. You
mind.
are so right on that. So you can go, okay, here's what they did, and you can find the path of what they did. You also got to find out what's in their mindset. What was the mindset that they had? The entrepreneurial mindset is very specific. It's very simple. The entrepreneurial mindset is I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I also know what I'm good at, what I like to do, what I'm not good at, and what I don't like to do. Those are some really, like, the entrepreneurial mindset is I know I'm good at this and I'm not good at that. I need to find someone to help me here. I like to do this and I don't like to do this. I need to find someone to help me do this. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And knowing you got to know you. You said that. You said that when you started this whole podcast. You were like, you got to know what's going on here. You got to know what's going on up here. And that's for the individual. Each individual needs to know them. What do they like to do? That's a powerful thing.
Now, in terms of, we're talking, for example, about the entrepreneurial aspect, which I would say it is a niche in specific. What about for people that are not an entrepreneurial mindset? How does NLP can help them?
Well, so if you look at it from a different angle, NLP is a study of how successful people communicate in their head and with other people. So the two people that invented NLP back in the 70s, they asked a very powerful question. The question that they asked was, why is it that that person over there got success and the other person over there didn't get success? So for example, they looked at therapists in the early stages of NLP. That's why sometimes people look at NLP and they go, it's a lot about therapy. And my dad came in with more of a business angle and said, no, this can also be applied to business. There was a therapist named Virginia Satir. And Virginia Satir got results with people. And the two people that invented NLP, they said, why is it that she got results? And what they found is that there's a certain communication style that successful people have in their mind and that how they communicate with other people. So they began in the 70s to go, okay, how can we emulate? How can we take and like make it operational that this is the mindset that they have? How do we incorporate that and basically replicate that? And so for a person that's not yet an entrepreneur, you got to start within you. You got to start with your mindset. You have to start with your emotional intelligence. And a lot of what we teach and what you got to experience, JJ, is the how of it. That's why I wanted to be on this show so much. I wanted to be on your show because it was like, you're about how do you take it? A lot of people talk about it and they talk about the mindset of it. Okay, how do you take that mindset and make it work? And you're right, it's not always monkey see, monkey do. I coached a guy who in real estate was considered to be one of the top agents in Keller Williams, named Tim Heil. He gave me permission to share the story. I coached him back in 2017, and he wanted to create something within real estate that had never been experienced before. And it had to do with how do you get out of one house and get into another. And I said to him, we have to find someone else that did what you are wanting to do. And he said, no one's done this before. I was coaching him one-on-one. And I said, well, there are people that did something similar in different industries. You can look at what other people have done. What was their mindset? What did they need to, like, who did they need to attract to themselves? And he did all of that. And in 2018, he launched a revolutionary business within real estate called Homeward. And Homeward was about how do you get out of one home and into another one with all of the money involved in it and whatnot. And extreme success story with that. And it wasn't just like what you said, JJ. It wasn't a monkey see, monkey do. We had to go, what was the mindset of someone creating a market disrupting new business? And how do you emulate that mindset? Because everything trickles down from the mind, right? And so that's what we did. I mean, it was simple and it also took some time. Yeah.
Right. And this is so right now, Dr. Matt, in this conversation, my mind's starting to like expand in angles that I have not even seen before. One of the things that it's resonating with me is this idea that, as you said, okay, we first find someone who has been successful at something that we want to do. Then we emulate and at the same time inspect and adapt continuously for our
Right.
context. Is that around those lines?
That's a great way of saying it, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to find someone that has done what you want to do. Now, JJ, the closer that you can get to what you've done, right? The closer that you can get to exactly what you want to accomplish, the easier it is. I mean, our company, we don't want to go Tony Robbins level. We don't. I love going into depth. I love going into action, like what you and I are talking about right now. I love going into how do you put into action? When you have 10,000 people in front of you, I've been in front of that size group. It's more get pumped up. It's more get motivated. It's not as much action. And so we as a company, we're doing something that no one else has done. So I got to look at, 5, 6, 7 people and go, okay, how did they do their marketing? How did they do their mindset? And bring all of that together. So sometimes it's a puzzle. If you're wanting to create a real estate company that, grows to 100 people, there's hundreds of people that have done that. My wife used to work for a company in Houston called the Loken Group. She helped to grow them from 20 people to 100 something people.
Mm,
That's been done before. You can find that and emulate it without any
mm,
question. When you want to
mm.
create something new where you haven't been down that path, sometimes you got to take multiple models
Right.
and incorporate that.
Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Radio. You're helping me also because what I do is what I call it human optimization strategy.
Yep.
Imagine how many of them exist in the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
One, this guy, because I have
Yep.
created this thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
now
You're
let me.
doing something that you're pulling from a bunch of different sources. One of
Right.
my clients right now, they are in an industry that they could emulate one person, but they don't want to be that person. So they have 9 models of success, 9 models,
Mm,
and they're pulling different facets from each model and bringing it
mm,
together. That's what you've done. That's what you've done with the
mm.
optimization.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Rod. This is helping so much. And now I have another question from another angle.
Of
So
course.
when, for example, I am also training a person, when I am even sharing information, sometimes I bring the word NLP and I immediately I can see how they go like in this defensive mode, like, oh, But this is oh, I've heard that this is no good. So I wanted to ask you, what
Sure.
is that what are the myths behind NLP? Because thankfully I never had any of those ones, thankfully. So that's the reason when I started training with you guys, I had this beginner's mindset, which allowed me not to have any mental or emotional resistance. But what is going on there?
Well, unfortunately, NLP and hypnosis for that matter, let's use those two concepts and ideas. They're both unregulated. They're both unregulated fields. Think of it as coaching. Think of it as coaching. So I coach. Right now I have 6 clients. I have a little bit of an overlap. Hyper successful individuals. That's the maximum that I take. And I work with them one-on-one. In fact, I did a coaching call this morning, amazing call. And my clients are next level individuals that are out there changing the planet, right? So some of them don't like the concept of NLP. Some of them don't like it because they got into NLP at an early age, like coaching. People, JJ, I hope I hope you like appreciate this so much because you've invested so much time and energy into this. I was at the airport the other day, and there were a bunch of kids there, and they had just graduated from high school. They were talking about graduating, and 2 of them were talking about going to college, and one of them said, "I think I'm going to skip college. I'm just going to start coaching people because coaching you can make a lot of money." And I leaned back and I was like, "Oh my God." Well, it doesn't take anything to be a coach. That's why you have so many people out there that claim that they're a coach. That's the same thing with NLP. There are so many people out there that claim that they know NLP and they really don't. They don't understand it at a deeper
Mm,
level. And
mm,
so, I mean, that to me is the reason why. Same thing with hypnosis. Some people,
mm,
they read a single book, they watch a video, and they're like, I know hypnosis now, I'm ready to go. NLP was created by 2 doctors, and there's an art and a science to it. And unfortunately, NLP was never regulated. There's no trademark, there's no copyrights. And so a lot of people out there teach it and they don't teach it well. They think they know what they're talking about and they really don't. I mean that from my heart. Like, same thing with coaching. There's a lot of people out there that they've read one book and they coach rather than having gone to school or studied and did what you did. You dedicated to being in the field and to learn it at a deeper level. And that's the biggest difference to me, where some people just they're teaching it, they think they understand it, they really don't,
mm.
unfortunately.
I can get that part, and it is. I I appreciate, for example, what companies like yours are doing because they are creating now a standard or raising the bar so that a person who goes through the training knows what are the different levels of maturity, what I would call in being initially a practitioner, then a master practitioner, and then you have different levels. Now, let me ask also in the case, and this is because I study lineages. That's what I do. When I find someone that I look up to, I don't stop there. I go on, I look for who this person has emulated or has learned from, and then this person, and then so on and so forth. So in your case, we're talking about that it started, for example, at least the NLP side with the 2 doctors that created it. Then it went, let's say, to, and how I see this is like we had here Grinder and Mander here, then it led into the Tony Robbins school that your dad here, and there are a couple of other schools around here. Then now you're 3rd generation here. Is that something right? But it's not just one generation, you're merging schools. Your lineage is very interesting. So can you let us know that about that?
Well, I mean, I did the practitioner level with Tony Robbins and Richard Bandler, the guy who invented
Mhm.
NLP, and then I became a
Yeah.
master practitioner. I was the youngest person at the time. I was 15. I've actually certified someone younger than that now. I was 15 at the time in the 80s, and I learned directly from Richard Bandler. So I learned from the guy that invented it. My dad created the next level. My dad created the trainer's training, where we teach people how to teach. And so I feel like, yeah, you're right. My father and I both learned directly from the people that created it. And when you have that, I guess you would say, what, first generation under the people that created it, they understand it at a little bit of a deeper level. Whereas people that come 3 or 4 levels, maybe they don't understand it as well. Like, so for example, here's an example. In the 80s and 90s, when I was practicing this, the world was different. There was no Zoom, there was no, cell phones were attached to your car. There was a different mindset that was out there. And so a lot of people who learned NLP at that time, if they didn't learn it, the depth of it, they sit there and they go, okay, well, we just have to teach it the way it was taught back in the 90s. Well, fast forward, post-COVID, the world has changed. The world has changed a lot, and what you need to do has to change. And that's the idea of NLP. So a lot of other techniques that are out there are very fixed. Here's what I did, 1, 2, 3, 4, whereas NLP is, that's what I used to do. What are successful people doing now? What are people who are being successful in this environment right now? What are they doing? And we have the election coming up, and you have a lot of people that have anxiety around that. And yet, JJ, did I teach your practitioner training? I think I taught your prac training in Austin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. There's an example that I use, and I think you'll remember this. I look out at the room, and in Austin, we usually have about 100 or so people that are in the room. And I look out at the room and I go, how many of you have ever known someone that has made money in a good economy? I said, it's not a trick question. And the hands go up. And I said, how many of you have ever known people that have lost money in a bad economy? All the hands go up. I said, okay, how many of you have ever known someone that has lost money in a good economy? Hands go up. I said, how many of you have ever known someone that has made money in a bad economy? And hands go up. At this point, people are laughing. I said, how many of you know people that blame the economy for their state of being? I said, NLP, the core of NLP is, it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter who's being elected. You got to figure out a way to be successful in whatever's going on out there. That's old school NLP. That's old school personal growth and development mindset. The mindset of it is, if someone's successful in this economy, with this president, with whatever's going on in the world, let's follow them. When COVID shut down, one of my students, one of my top graduates, he owns 7 restaurants in the Scottsdale area, very successful. A fellow entrepreneur whose restaurant was across the street from him. The two of them got together, and he's like, the other guy is like, COVID's going to destroy all restaurants. And my student was like, I don't see it that way. I think we can make a lot of money. He scaled down. He kept doing food orders. He actually ended up selling his restaurants at the tail end of COVID for about 2 or 3 times what he could have sold them
Wow.
pre-COVID. And he was written up in magazines about being the most successful entrepreneurial restaurant owner in the area. He didn't see COVID as a restaurant killer. He saw it as an opportunity. And that's the core of what I teach. That's the core of what you and I do,
Mhm.
is how do you emulate what someone else is doing? Not just physically, the action, the mindset behind it of, there is an opportunity in every moment.
Mhm. Now, going back or piggybacking on this notion of the mindset, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, there is the way that we operate in the mind, but also the way that we communicate with others, which is defined or is part of leadership, right?
Correct.
So let's start moving into practical aspect of how do we start applying those principles into one's life, please.
Okay. So I think the internal way of applying these principles is you recognizing, how do you interpret the world outside of you? That's where a lot of people get tripped up. So in NLP terminology, it's called a distortion. Distortion means you're interpreting what's happening outside of you. Now, you can interpret in a positive way, you can interpret in a negative way,
As in
right?
the case of the restaurant, right? Like COVID and
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, there are so many restaurants that shut down during COVID because they didn't know what to do. And there are many restaurants that thrived during COVID because they shifted their approach. That had to come from the owner's mindset of, okay, this may not look like an opportunity to some people out there. How do I see it as an opportunity? So internally, you have to be monitoring, how do you interpret? So just using plain English, not NLP terminology, how do you interpret? How do you interpret what's going on outside of you? If you are interpreting it negative and you can't see the positive, you got to start with you. You got to start with you. if you can see the positive and you really honestly can feel it, like in your heart and soul, you go, there's actually an opportunity here. Now, how do you communicate that to other people? You want to make this tangible. Like, how do you do something with this? Well, you got to meet people where they are. You need to meet people where they are. And if they're seeing the negative, you have to be able to meet them where they are, help them let that go, and basically get into a space of, okay, how do you actually see the positive here? How do you see what we can do from this? And so the first place I always start is I always start with my own mind. Where am I in my mindset? Where am I in my thinking? Am I interpreting this in the most positive way possible? And if I am, now how do I actually take this now and optimize it for someone else? How do I help them get into my mindset?
Okay, this is very interesting. So this is getting into something that I personally labeled as leadership of one, self-leadership, right?
Mhm.
It is, if I'm not able to lead myself or my own state, my own thoughts, the way that I may lead others may not be as optimal in this case.
That's
W-
true.
What are ways for us to dissect or evaluate or monitor this narrative or interpretation that we're having, and how to change it if it's not positive?
No, so you're asking about the narrative that we have in our own minds, right?
Yeah, this interpretation
Yeah.
that, as you mentioned, right?
Yep. In my fourth book that I wrote, Mental and Emotional Release, and you got to experience this, I talk about techniques to help people let go of their negative emotions. Emotions pull people's thoughts into the negative. So let's say, for example, that you had a business that didn't do as well as it could have, maybe even to the extreme of having failed. People can carry the baggage of that rather than, there are some people that naturally turn that around and go, okay, well, that was a learning opportunity and I got lessons from it. There are some people, JJ, that carry that baggage forward. The problem with negative emotions is that if anything outside of you triggers that negative emotion, if anything outside of you even looks like that baggage, the baggage comes up, the negative emotion comes up, and that's hard to control your thoughts. So it does help to start with releasing any of the baggage that you've had from the past. And there are a variety of techniques for that. In my book, Mental and Emotional Release, I talk about how do you let go of those negative emotions? How do you free yourself from it? Because it's kind of hard. I know it's a kid's movie. Have you seen Inside Out?
Yeah, fantastic movie.
Okay, okay. See,
His movie is a fantastic for anyone movie.
I
Yeah.
know, I know, I know. When the first one came out, my daughter was very young at that time. I think she was in elementary school, and she's like, "I want to see this movie, Daddy." And I was like, "All right," I took her, and I'm like, "Whatever." And halfway through the movie, I was like, "This is actually a really good description of how memories stick around. Memories are sticky because of emotional intensity, and do you keep talking about it? And this is where mentally you can have some control." And this is what I would say to any of you who are watching this, who follow JJ. If you keep telling the same story again and again, you're telling your unconscious mind, your subconscious, keep that story around. If you keep telling the story of how your business failed 10 years ago, 20 years ago, of how you didn't succeed at a sales call, if you didn't succeed on this one business venture, and you keep telling the story, you're telling your mind, focus on that. And so then even in the moment, JJ, even in the moment, you can't go, there's an opportunity because it triggers the old memories.
Hmm.
So you got baggage, there are release techniques that you can do. You also have to actively think about what are the times where you succeeded? Where are the times where you actually succeeded and did well?
Hmm.
I got a university accredited during the early 2000s. I took a university through the accreditation process. I thought that that would be our vehicle for bringing credibility to the field of NLP. We got accredited in 2008. 2008 is when the stock market dropped, and
Oh,
9 and 10 it continued to drop, and I ended up having to shut down the university.
wow.
And it was a seven-figure lesson for me. It was a seven-figure lesson. And JJ, I don't even think you've ever heard me tell that story.
Nope. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Right. And if someone brings it up, I go, yeah, I did. That was a seven-figure lesson. I
Mhm.
paid for a lesson. My mindset is on the current business, what I'm doing, and how to make that successful. If I keep
Mm.
getting up on stage and telling the story of here's that time where the business failed, I'm telling my mind that's how the world is. It's like you're
Mhm.
literally programming yourself. Neuro-linguistic programming. With your language, you're programming your mind and you're programming yourself. So
Mm.
you gotta be aware of what is your internal dialogue, not just your emotions. What is your internal dialogue and your thought process?
Mm.
You got to be willing to give up your old stories. You got to be willing to give up the not so great moments to be able to find the feedback and the success out of it.
Hmm. Dr. Matt, thanks for sharing that one. Yeah, I have never heard you telling about that story. Now, let me ask that about that specific story and maybe any other one that it pops in your mind, which is I would like to ask people, we are designed, we're destined to have ups and downs in life. Now, what I'm seeing is that some people they get stuck in, as you mentioned, the negatives, and they keep repeating, or it's because they keep this baggage with themselves. In your case, what is your personal heuristic or your personal algorithm? So when life hits you and it's like, oh my God, this is not something that happened before. How do you start changing that within yourself, if that is something I can ask?
I'm gonna have to go a little bit more on the spiritual side of the stuff that I
Let's
teach.
go.
I hope that's okay. I hope
Yeah, let's go.
okay, okay, okay. So, I teach something from Hawaii that's on the more spiritual side, energy work and whatnot. And I do believe in, enlightened entrepreneurial mindset and spiritual entrepreneurial mindset. JJ, one thing that I hear over and over again from successful individuals is they have a higher purpose for what they're doing. It's not just to make money.
Mhm.
It's what are you doing to make a difference? What are you doing to change something? And the people that are consistently successful, there are exceptions to the rules. There are people that just want to make a ton of money and they make a ton of money,
Yeah.
and good for them. I'm happy for them. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
The people that are consistently successful and have higher levels of happiness, this comes from my degree in psychology. They have a purpose for why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just wanting to make money, they're wanting to make a difference. And
Mhm.
it relates to what makes them feel personally good. So, in those moments where I haven't had such a great experience with business, where there's been dips, where, I mean, come on, JJ, I'm a live seminar and training company. You did your training with me on the tail end of, was it the tail end of COVID?
Yeah, I was around that area. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a tail end. There were 2 months where we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I
Where my
remember.
accountants, my CPAs, everyone was like, you got about a month left. A good company keeps 3 months cash reserve. You got about a month left. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'll go to whatever state opens up first. And they're like, why? Why not shut down? Why not just take this opportunity to close
Mhm.
everything down? And I said, because we actually make a difference in people's lives. We make a difference. I hear over and over again from people, thank you for doing what you're doing. I left this training and I feel better about me. And I got to hold on to that. So when the lessons come, you're able to go, okay, this lesson taught me how to be even more focused. So I'll share with you with the accreditation, I had this view in my early 30s after I got my master's degree that accreditation will somehow bring credibility to the field. Like you brought up earlier, NLP, some people don't see it as being credible. I thought accreditation would do that. And we actually got NLP accredited at the prac level, at the trainer's training level. Because of the economy, I had to shut it down. And what that taught me was really, I didn't want to deal with bureaucratic red tape and dealing with the Secretary of Education and going to conferences and wearing suits and ties. I love my Aloha shirts. I know I'm not wearing one right now, JJ, but I usually wear an Aloha shirt,
Yes,
right?
I know that. I know that.
You don't even recognize me. I know, I know. But no, I'm like, this isn't me. And if I had stayed on that path and we had been successful, I'd be running a university right now. And I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't feel as alive as I do. And I went, okay, I missed a point. I got to focus in on my purpose. And that's a big thing. The
Mhm.
best entrepreneurs that I've ever worked with, have a purpose. One of my clients is serving his community. He's like, I don't want to just make money with my stores. I want to serve my community. Tim Heil and Matt Patulski, who I coached back in 2017, I almost didn't coach them because the real estate, it's just making money. And Matt said, no. Matt said, you've owned homes. I said, yes, I have. He said, remember your first home? I said, yes, I do. He said, didn't you feel different owning a home? I said, I did. He said, our mission is to help people feel better about themselves through home ownership. And I went, that's a purpose. And this guy's company is now worth $1 billion. Yeah. And they're not just there to make money. They want to make people feel better through home ownership.
Yeah, that's a vehicle, just a vehicle to fulfill that.
Yep. So I find that the entrepreneurial mindset isn't just, I will do whatever it takes. It's why. You got to answer the question, why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because if the answer is make money, I'm sorry. I've worked with people that have so much money and they only thought about money and they're miserable. And I've worked with people that have a ton of money and they have a reason why, and they're so unbelievably happy, so unbelievably fulfilled in their life. And I think that makes a huge difference because when you are fulfilled, when you're happy, you can show up at another level.
Yeah, it radiates in everything that we're creating at some point. And I can relate to what you said. In my case, for example, many people tell me, yeah, you should have a certification and da, 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 da. And in my case, I said, no, 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 no. We're going to go one person at a time. I don't know how to figure out this, how to scale this, but we're going to figure out in a way that is aligned with
Perfect.
my purpose, right? So at some point, many times we are, what I've been seeing, Dr. Man, I would like to have your perspective. It is getting probably a little out of the context of NLP and communication, but there is a lack of purpose, or people are craving for finding new purpose in their lives, and many times that is where they think that the what is called the this goal to get money, this goal to get something, it is what is gonna give them purpose. It does it for a little bit of time until it does. Yeah. So how do we start making sense thanks to NLP technologies, if I would call it, or even spiritual technologies? Like you mentioned, you have the HUNA and the NLP here. That's what I was talking about, the convergence of the schools of thought that you have to help the person find meaning, find purpose.
This is what I love, and this is why I wanted to be on your podcast. This is why I want to be here with you. And seriously, JJ, because that is a huge mission that you and I both have, that you and I both share, which is how do you have a person find purpose? And so NLP, I learned NLP in an early age. So NLP 101, how do other people do it? Great. There was a great interview of a woman in Yahoo Finance. This is a number of years ago now. This is about a decade ago. And she was working in the corporate world. She was making multi six figures and she was miserable. She hated her life. She had lots of money. She had the car, she had the house, whatever, the watch, who gives a shit? And she was like, I hate my life. I come home every day and I'm miserable. So she said, I'm going to do something simple. I'm going to write down what are the top 10 things that I love to do, And then she categorized it. And at the top was travel and dance. Travel and dancing, JJ, dancing.
What a novel concept.
I know. No, so she Googled it, right? And they didn't have chat back then. They didn't have, AI back then. So she Googled it, and there is an industry for people who want to go to exotic destinations and learn to dance.
What?
Yeah, there's an industry for everything. And she went, okay. So she found a model of success and she went, I'm going to do that. So she opened up her own company. She saved up a little bit of money, opened up her own company where she picks an exotic destination, finds people who are dance instructors, sets up like a week vacation where you go and you learn dance, and then you go to like 4 different clubs and you dance, and she gets to learn the dance with them and dance with them. She said in the article, I don't make as much. She said, but I make 6 figures easily. And I love my life because I go to Spain and I go to Barcelona. I remember Barcelona specifically, and I learned to do this new Spanish dance. And then I go clubbing with the people, and they, at the end of it, they hug me and they thank me and they say, "Thank you so much. This was the best trip." And I read the article and I went, that's such a simple answer to life. There's an industry for everything. There's literally an industry for everything. Now, if you want to make a lot of money, you can't be in certain industries. There are certain industries that you're going to have a ceiling. That's the way life is. You know what I mean? Yeah, I want to teach people a depth. I want to avoid going above 100 people in the room. At the master level classes, maybe 150, but it's like, if I got that ceilings, that caps what I can do. If I only want to coach 4 or 5 people any given time. So that's a decision that you have to make. At the end of the day, though, what you just said, the more spiritual side of it is, are you happy? And so, I mean, at the end of the day, as you get older, you wake up one day and you go, okay, I've had this, I've had that. I've done this, I've done that, but who am I? And it's a very freeing moment when you wake up and you go, this is just who I am. I love teaching spiritual stuff. I love teaching personal growth. I love drinking Italian red wine, eating red meat, and I drop an F-bomb every once in a while. And I'm just like, I'm going to be me. And I'm happier that way, as opposed to, who do I have to be for other people? And I think that's also the entrepreneurial mindset. You see a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who don't give a shit what other people think of them. I mean, look at Elon Musk, whether you like him or not. He's like, I'm going to do it my way. And I think the Cybertruck, or whatever he calls it, is hideous. But he just did it. He's like, I did it. I think the thing looks like an unfinished boxcar. I think I made that
There's
my
so
own.
many here in Austin, so many, because of they have the Tesla factory here, right?
I have no charge around it though, JJ, but I have one client who has so much anger towards it. I'm like, you got to let this go.
That's
This
a lot
is
of baggage.
my baggage.
Maybe he's carrying his baggage in his Cybertruck.
He's carrying the baggage of the Cybertruck. That's so funny. That's so funny. I'm like, yeah, it represents something, but you want to know what? At the end of the day, if Musk is the one that said, this is what I want to do, he doesn't give a shit. I bet you he sleeps better than the person who is pretending to be someone else that they don't want to be.
I'll have to percolate all of that. And in the meantime, while I am percolating what that is processing in my mind, let me bring us back into some of the practical aspects here. If you have 10 floors of an elevator and someone gets in and they say, Dr. Matt, I need your advice. Can you give this person 2 things? First, what's one classic mistake of a beginner when starting NLP? And then what is a practice or an idea, a principle, also in NLP and effective communication, that would accelerate their progress?
Okay. I think the one thing that holds people back is that they don't do the formula that we just talked about. And I'm going to add to that. I want to add to that.
Yeah.
So it's discovering what you like to do and being good with you. The Hawaiian word is pono. I'm from Hawaii. And so the Hawaiian word is pono, being right with you. Like, this is who I am. I'm good. I think that's the biggest mistake. I think, to now add to that from an NLP perspective, being okay communicating that with other people, being okay sharing with other people, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. I think that that's number one, is if you know you, how do you share that with others? Now, how do you accelerate? If I was going to give one piece of advice, and JJ, you're only giving me 2 options here, and you know I love to talk.
You can go a little bit, okay? You can.
I know. I appreciate that.
Floor 15. Let's go to
I'm on floor 15. You're awesome. I appreciate you. I think it's being flexible. I think it's being flexible because so many people get stuck in one way of doing things. There's a basic principle of NLP called the law of requisite variety. And it's whoever's the most flexible ends up having more influence within the area that they're in, right? And so I think a lot of people lose flexibility. They think there's only one way. And even I went down that path before, where I sat there going, NLP, HUNA, these are the only approaches. And there are so many approaches that can get you to a level of success. And so having flexibility, I think a lot of people lack flexibility. And you actually see that more. I mean, you're asking me because I've taught, I started teaching in the 90s. So I've gotten to watch the 90s, early 2000s, the tens or whatever you would call the teenage years. And now in the 20s, we're in the mid 20s now. And I see less flexibility now than I used to in the past. There's only
Ah,
one way, and that's my way. There's only, you're either for my way or you're against my way. There's very
mm,
little in between room. And I hear that a lot,
wow.
even from younger people coming in. I had two students in this last training who, please forgive me, over the summer, I had two students who were assisting, both of whom are in their early 20s. One of them immigrated from Egypt when she was 14 years old. And as a woman, she's like, I just don't have as much opportunity in Egypt. She's like, I don't. She goes, I'm not saying I don't like Egypt. She goes, I go back every year. I go back multiple times. I love my country. She
Mhm.
said, I have more opportunity here. Both of them opted out of traditional education. They've gone down the real estate path. Both of them probably going to have more money than I do by the time they're 25. I mean, just incredible with their mindset and everything. And both of them said to me, she said, one of them specifically said to me, I deal with a generation right now and a mind of thinking that there's one way and the other way is wrong. There's nothing,
Mm,
there's no flexibility. And they brought up the whole cancel culture thing, and they brought up a lot of things that are happening right now. And so, a big thing that I'm seeing is really, are you flexible? Are you able to be flexible and get out of your own way? Because so many people go, there's only one way to do it. There's only one path. There's only one approach.
mm,
And the problem with that is that it makes you so narrow-minded thinking that you will miss an opportunity. And those would be the two big things. If you actually said to me, I would be like, know you and be good with you. Be good with who you are. Like if you, one of my clients is in real estate, and there are people that he has a podcast with thousands of followers. And he said, there are some people that reach out to him and say NLP doesn't belong in real estate. And he's like, go find another podcast. He said, I used to try to reframe them. I used to try to get them to think differently. Now he's like, fuck it, go find another podcast. I'm going to focus on this because it works. It actually works. And he's so congruent with who he is. So I'd
mm,
be congruent with who you are and have flexibility. Those would be the two big things right there.
mm. Thank you, Dr. Matt. This leads me to a question that it's popping in my mind, which is, how would you define what optimal mindset means for a person? What are the principles of optimal mindset?
Optimal mindset, I would go back to, do you know what your outcome is?
Mhm.
Do you know what you want? So number one, optimal mindset. Do you know what you want? Okay. Number two is, are you taking action towards what you want? There's a great book that came out. I always love to give credit where credit is due. And the book is 10 times is easier than 2 times. 10x is easier than 2x. And that's because a lot of people waste their time. So do you know what your outcome is? Are you taking action towards it? As you're taking action, do you have sensory acuity? Do you have an awareness of what's going on?
Mhm.
That's are you outside of the tunnel vision? Are you seeing everything? Are you
Mhm.
seeing, the things that happen with COVID, stock market crashes, all of those things?
Mhm.
Number four is, do you have behavioral flexibility? Are you being flexible
Mhm.
on the path? So know your outcome, taking action, sensory acuity. Are you being flexible while you're on your path? And
Mhm.
then I think the fifth thing would be from how do you optimize your mind? Would be, are you living what you're teaching? Are
Hmm.
you a psychology and a physiology of excellence? Are
Guinea,
you
a
being
guinea
the
pig,
best?
a guinea pig, and a scientist of oneself.
Yep, yep. Are you being the best that you possibly can be? Best
Mhm.
doesn't mean perfect. No one's
Correct.
perfect. Yeah,
That's the reason I call it optimal. I personally call it optimal. Yeah.
exactly. Are you being
Ah.
optimal? So I
Now,
would say that's it
mm,
right there. I would say that's the mindset of the, and you got to do it in that order. You have to do it in that order because you need to know
mm,
your target, right? You need to know here's where I'm going.
mm,
Then you have to be like, I'm going to take action, and the action has to be on the path,
mhm,
not outside of the boundaries of the path.
mhm,
Then do you have sensory acuity for everything that's going on around you? Are you flexible because things change rapidly? I mean,
mm,
just think back 4 years ago when you did your trainings with me. Things change like that. What you did your prac before COVID, you did your master prac after COVID. Things were different. You know what I mean? Do you have
mhm,
flexibility? And then the
mhm,
fifth one is, are you operating at an optimal mindset where you are literally optimizing and doing the best that you possibly can do? I would say
mm.
that right there. Those are the five principles.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mar. That's gonna be okay. This part is getting great. I didn't think about having these questions, but now that they are emerging, are fantastic. One thing to clarify for people, when you talk about sensory acuity, in this case, you're talking about having a wider perspective of what is happening in the field. Is that what you mean by this?
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to use two examples. The first example is Encyclopedia Britannica. Now,
Mhm.
I'm dating myself to be able to say Encyclopedia Britannica. If there's anyone that's watching this that is younger than 30, they might not even know what an encyclopedia is. Okay, so an encyclopedia is a set of books that was in the library A through Z. Britannica was the number one encyclopedia. They had been around since I think it was 1800s. And so just here's the easiest way to think about it for the younger listeners. It was Google in books. Like if you wanted to look something up, like if you wanted to know what a Tyrannosaurus is, you would go to D for dinosaurs, open it up, go to Tyrannosaurus, and you would get this whole write-up on it. Well, the internet was invented, and the board of directors said, and I quote, "We are Encyclopedia Britannica. We have always been in books. If you want the best, you will have to buy us on a book. We will never be online." They were dead in 1 year. In Encarta by Microsoft killed them in under a calendar year. Now, maybe they survived for a few years later and maybe they're online now, but no one knows who they are and no one gives a shit, right? So sensory acuity is what's going on around you. Behavioral flexibility is can you adapt to that? Now,
Mm,
Encyclopedia Britannica is an example of not adapting.
mm.
Google is an example of adapting. I remember when Google was launched. I mean, I'm that old. I remember when Google was launched and they were just a search engine and they were fighting against Yahoo and what was it like
AOL and
AOL had one, CompuServe had one, and they
yes.
were fighting. And Google went, hold on, let's look around at the environment. There are people that would pay us if we would put their search engine up. What if we give people your website is really well designed. We'll list you a little higher. What if we make you do what we want, but we'll give you something? No one had done that before. Everything else was really, and if someone had, I might be wrong, Google did it faster and better. And they looked around at the environment and they went, marketing and advertising. We're not a search engine, we're a marketing engine. And their mindset shifted.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
yeah.
now look at Google. Now, in my humble opinion, Google is struggling against AI. They're
Oh
trying to
yeah.
move fast. I,
Oh
I
yeah.
bear, I used to use Google, JJ. I used to use Google to figure shit out. I don't use them anymore because I'm tired of sponsored ads. AI, it's chat. I got chat I got chat on my iPad. I got
Yes.
chat on my phone. I don't
Do
like when I
you
type something in Google, I'm like, this is a waste of time.
do you use Perplexity AI?
No, I use chat. I use a standard chat.
ChatGPT, take a look at that. For me, Perplexity is as if
Okay.
ChatGPT and Google would have had a baby without ads, and it goes and you can focus on only content material here and here, and fantastic for research. For it, I would
Perplexity.
highly
Okay.
recommend. So in
I
my case,
appreciate that. I will listen. I will
okay.
100%. Yeah. And,
How are
and
we
so,
doing how are we doing with time, Dr. Matt? Are we still good?
oh, we're good. We're 100% good.
Amazing. Okay, what
Yeah.
were you going to say?
No, I was going to say those are examples of sensory acuity and behavioral
Mm,
flexibility. Is Google in their own way right now? You
yeah.
know, Apple, you know me, JJ, you know me. I have a Mac. I'm on a Mac right now. I got my iPad. I got my Apple Watch. And one of the things that Steve Jobs said before he died is, we become so big, can we actually innovate anymore? Will we get in our own way? Because we became big by saying IBM is so big, they suck. They've become IBM. They're the next IBM.
It's fascinating. So that gives me two angles here, Dr. Matti, which is, and I usually tell people when I'm working one-on-one, is like, you were using, let's use the example of Windows 98. Windows 98 worked great in 98,
Correct.
right? Now we're in 2024. Some people keep using the Windows 98 nowadays. So in terms of mindset, it is, how do we upgrade? What do we need to upgrade in the way that we are behaving, the way that we are relating to oneself and to other people?
That's a good
And
question.
knowing that once we upgrade to something that allows us to reach our new goals, at some point this behavior that we have installed in 2024 is not going to be useful anymore, and we have to upgrade it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that always takes me back to the basis of NLP. And so for example, I'm coaching this group of business owners. They didn't even have a mission for their company, not even a mission. They're hiring me. I don't think right now, I don't think AI could coach them. I think AI is good for certain things. From an emotional standpoint, AI is not there yet. Will it ever be able to get there? Who knows? I have no idea. From an actual human emotional standpoint. So they're working with me. And I said, from a business standpoint, you have to have a mission statement. You have to have a mission. Now, JJ, my old approach to a mission statement, I have a formula. The formula is very clear. It works. I have a master's in business. I know how to write mission statements. I have worked with Fortune 100 companies. Like, let's refine your mission statement. And I went, let's use chat. Let's use AI. And they went, what? I said, yeah, let's plug into AI. AI, you have to teach AI what to throw out there. Let's tell them what industry you're in, what your niche is, who your ideal clients are, how long you've been around, like what is your primary focus. JJ, I'm not even joking. Chat threw back a mission statement that we changed, I think, 2 or 3 words in, and it became the mission statement for their company and has helped them to next level. And I mean, like, that to me is, you have to now use AI. You have to now know how to utilize the tools and techniques that are out there. And you also got to know, in 2 years, it's going to be different. It's going to be a different set of tools and techniques. And that is the entrepreneurial mindset. That's how to optimize your mind. That's how you sit there and you go, okay, how do I achieve what I want to achieve? What's going on all around me, and incorporating it. And, at first I was against AI, mainly because every movie has ended badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to happen with AI. I don't know if it's going to turn out good. I don't know if it's going to turn out bad. At the end of the day, though, I have the app on my phone. I have the app on my iPad, and I know how to use it and how to work with it. And that's technology. That's NLP.
Yes, something funny happened last night, Dr. Rad. I also have it so in my phone. So I'm constantly talking to it. I'm
Yeah.
constantly talking to it, right? So last night I parked the car. I am holding it. I'm pressing that hold and walking to get me some dinner. And the point is, I didn't realize I was talking to AI, right? While I'm pressing the phone, the screen, and I scratched my foot with a wire that was on the street. So it started bleeding. So I'm like, ow, right? And I released the screen, and so AI said, "Oh, it sounds like you're having some issues there." So I started connecting with me. What? That's crazy. But the point of all of this is, as you mentioned, in my case, when I'm training, for example, leaders, I get them not to dive into technologies, AI technologies, from a standpoint that is, you must do this. No, no. What I do is I entice their curiosity. I
Like
use
that.
the same analogy or the same metaphors I would use with a kid. Is, look at this, what you can do. And once they start in discovering that, their own eyes, you have to see, like, open up like this, and they say, and then they think, right? They go like this, and they switch their thinking into what can I do, and then they come back with this huge scream, and then they
Yeah,
start diving into it. So once that happens, the next thing that I say is like, okay, this is great. Now let's apply critical thinking. Let's
correct.
apply critical thinking so that we are not fully engaged into something that, as you mentioned, is emotionless in this case. And in our case, I can see, for example, how the prompt or the response from an AI can create, even within the human system, uh,
Hmm.
um, a baggage. It could create baggage if it's not properly
Sure,
filtered. It's
sure.
crazy.
Yeah.
So how do you see, or what's your thoughts, if you have had any, around the future of NLP or communication, effective communication with the new technologies that we have?
My mind has gone now that I've done more exploration on what we have from a technological standpoint. And I want to pre-frame this with my dad had a philosophy. My dad founded the company back in 1982. He passed away 3 years ago, and an incredible individual, contributed to this field so much. Amazing man. He referred to himself as an early adopter. Early adopter means if there's a new technology, you adopt it as quickly as you can, or you're left behind, because technology drives what we do. So I think he had a computer before pretty much anyone else in Hawaii. Like he had a punch card computer, which never mind, it's really old.
Like the carta, like the cartas of hardware.
Yeah, yeah, yes, the car there, right? And then he had a floppy drive when the disk drive was this big. I mean, it was insane. I mean, he adopted technology rapidly,
Mm,
rapidly. And what he said was that you have to keep the human side of it.
mm,
So learning from that, it's how do you utilize technology and stay true to who you are? And what I think is going to still be relevant for us today is the human connection of it. It really is. I think that that's going to become a very powerful commodity as AI kicks up, as virtual kicks up, and you can put goggles on and live in a different world. I think one of the big things that's going to hit is the human connection. And that's going to come from more heart-centered, which I don't know if they're ever going to be able to create something that can do that for you at the depth, Maybe they will one day. Energy. I don't know how our computer is going to replicate energy. If it does one day, let's work with it. For now, though, it's the heart-centered aspect of it, and it really is the energy behind it. And I think a
mm,
lot of that comes from purpose, like what you and I talked about. It's
mm,
one of the people that recently went through our trainings, he was a student. He came up to me. We were just in Carlsbad, California, North San Diego, and he came up to me and he said, "One of the things that I love about these trainings is that you take the time to connect. You take the time to connect with individuals." And I went, okay, I think that right now is a huge commodity. You
mm,
can ask chat for a mission statement, and at the end of the day, the work that I did with that group of business owners before giving chat all of the information was defining what's important to them about the mission statement.
mm.
Because you can't tell chat, make me a mission statement.
Right.
You got to say, chat, here's the business that I'm in. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what's important to me.
Mm,
And if you know all of that, now make me a mission statement.
mm.
You still got to have the human aspect. And I think that that's a big thing from an entrepreneurial mindset of maintaining that, holding on to that.
And this is so interesting because I've seen myself and also started sharing this with people that once I request something to any AI and it comes, I need to like assess within my own system, my own nervous system, how does it feel? Does it feel in alignment, yes or no? And that is not something that it is cognitive, it's more visceral. And
Correct.
that takes it to another level.
Yeah, I think people trusting their feelings. So in Hawaii, we have a term called the na'au. The na'au is your gut. The
Mm,
na'au is your gut. Your pu'uvai is your heart. And so in ancient Hawaii, it was believed that you were smarter if you could trust your gut and
mm,
trust your heart than if you could think things through. I
mm.
think chat helps us speed up what we can think.
Yeah.
I think it does. It really it closes the gap between it closes the gap between people that have spent a portion of their life reading every book they can. Well, with chat, here's an example. My grandfather was a World War II Navy guy, and he was hands-on, like do things around the house. He taught me that. I
Mm,
was in Italy. We had a home in Italy for a while, and my son was there. I was having trouble with the plumbing. I'm doing it myself, and my son said, I figured it out. I said, you don't know how to do plumbing. And he said, no, I found a YouTube video. This is before chat. This is before AI. And
mm,
I'm like, that's cheating. And he's like, how is it cheating? I went on YouTube, I found a video, and I went, okay. So when I was growing up, you had to know someone that taught you, but now
mm,
you have to know someone to teach you, called
mm,
your iPad, called your phone. It's you still need you though,
mm,
because
yeah,
AI is not going to do it for you. So I think the thing that a person who wants to be an entrepreneur in this time and like phase, they have to know we can close the gap mentally rapidly. With AI, we can close the gap mentally. They can't
mm,
close the gap yet from a heart-centered, from a gut, from a energy perspective. And exactly what you said, the feeling, learning how
mm,
to trust your feelings.
Okay, this is fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Matt. Let's go into rapid fire questions to finish this. So,
Of
in the
course.
case, let's talk about Dr. Matt himself. So, what is your definition of optimal performance?
Optimal for more performance for me would be that you know who you are and that what you do flows from that, and that the things that you would want to have then will automatically materialize. You know who you are from spirit to physical, you know who you are and you are congruent with it.
Mm,
Because you know who you are, you know what you're meant to be doing. So you're doing what you're meant to be doing, and you know that you're doing the things that you're meant to be doing because what you're meant to have just shows up for you. The right people, the right resources, all of that. Plain and simple.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. It's basically living in alignment. Uh,
Yep, 100%.
Next question. What are your daily habits for your what's considered optimal performance? What are some of them, maybe?
Oh, I can. I'm very clear on that. I could go down a whole rabbit hole and do an entire show
Please
with you on
do.
this. I'm a big believer that your routine equals your results. And some people don't like the word routine, so I'll use your terms. Your daily habits equal your results. The people that have clearer daily habits have higher level of results. Whether you like Tom Brady as a quarterback or not, he was football 365 days a year. No one has won more Super Bowls as an individual or a team. So my daily habits are number one, I have a personal philosophy of spending time with my wife. That's number one. Christina and I, we connect in the morning. We sit in nature. Gratitude is a big thing, and not just I'm just so happy there's oxygen. No, no, no. It's got to be something deeper than that. And we express gratitude before any technology. We do gratitude and we express gratitude from the previous day. Spend time in nature. I mean, I think that's a really big thing. Everyone, we all live in these cubby holes and we spend time in nature. I mean, those are big things right there. You see that with successful individuals where they prioritize. So prioritizing for me, and I'm different than everybody else, right? For
Right.
me, relationship and family. That's a higher priority than what I do. I got to be connected with them. I usually send a message or reach out to my kids every morning after connecting with my wife. Super simple. Gratitude and then nature. I mean, those
Mm.
are those are three big ones for me.
The gratitude one, I call what you said. It's not just theoretical or cognitive gratitude. I call it visceral gratitude when
I
we
like that.
savor the gratitude, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you
What?
have to have a feeling. The gratitude can't just be mental. Exactly what you're
Uh,
saying. It's
yeah.
got to
Yeah.
be it's got to be an emotional gratitude. Otherwise, no.
I posted, I've been doing this experiment for now several months. It has changed in my life. I put it on the newsletter, which is 7 minutes of visceral gratitude. And the first minute is still cognitive, minute and a half, and then it starts turning into real visceral connection with another person. Now it's like you said, in co-regulation with another person.
I
Now
like that.
that's very different. And you have extra points if you are grateful for the hard stuff. So that
Yep.
is
I like that. That's very powerful. Yep.
Uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, who were Dr. Matt's mentors, if you can list a few of them, whether they are or they were a list of the ones that pop up in your mind?
Wow. There are four mentors that I had that were the most powerful, and it's a weird moment in life, JJ, when all of them are gone. They're all gone now. Uncle
Mm,
George Naope, who was considered to be a loea. Loea means a master of masters in the Hawaiian culture. He founded the Merry Monarch Hula Festival. I lived with him in the 90s. He was a mentor. He passed away in 2009. John Kaimikawa was another elder that I learned from, a master as well. He passed away in '06. They both lived their life based on these things that I've taught you, like based on the things that you have learned from me that I've shared on this podcast. Just so powerful. My dad, without a doubt, my dad lived his life dedicated to it 100%, and just an incredible individual. And the last one, Tony Robbins. I mean, whether you like him or you don't, I got my start as an 11-year-old when I think he just started training, just started teaching. He must have been in his early 20s, and just all four of these people dedicated their entire life to it. And please forgive me, obviously Tony Robbins is still alive. The first three that I think about, they've passed.
wow.
Tony's still out there doing it. Tony's been doing this so 40 years. 40 years he's been dedicating to this one thing since his early 20s.
Hmm.
I think that's a common theme with all of them. They found something that they love and they dedicated to it.
Oh, thanks for sharing. I think this is the first time that I'm realizing that, yeah, at some point the mentors start fading. And
They do.
thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. I know that their memory is being preserved within yourself and with your students.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. Dr. Matt, what are next initiatives on your own, on NLP.com? Where do we can find you guys? What are next initiatives that we should be aware of?
NLP.com is the easiest. We have 20 something workshops that we run every single year. We have advanced workshops like what you've been to, JJ. We have an online learning platform with thousands of hours of information on it for people that can't make it to the live training. I'm going to be teaching in Atlantic City. I know that sounds really weird, but I'm going to New Jersey. There's a woman flying in from London on a referral.
Wow.
Yeah, like that she wanted to learn NLP from someone like exactly what you were saying. And she's flying in from London and she's like, I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna be dialed in. I'm hoping that she comes up and introduces herself. And so, I mean, we have people that fly in from all around the world to do our trainings. And I think that's it. That's the simplest place for me. Getting out my next book, my sixth book. I want to get my next book out. It is probably the most comprehensive that I've written, and that's my next big goal. That's the next big one, to get that one out.
Thanks, Dr. Matt. Yeah, and I will put also the other books that we have in the
I appreciate
description.
that. I appreciate
Especially
that.
the MER has been fantastic also and very influential.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything else that you would like the audience to leave the audience with before we go into the last question?
Yeah, there's one thing that I always love to wrap up with, and it's something that I shared with you when you did your Master Prac training, and that is, no matter what you think you are, you're always more than that. We always lock ourselves into these labels where we limit ourselves based on a label, based on a mindset, and you got to always remember you are more than that. Whatever you are more than that. And
Mhm.
I think that's a powerful way of just kind of every day reminding yourself that there's more to life than just what you're thinking about in that moment.
Mhm. Thanks, Dr. Matt. Let me ask you the very last question that I always ask, which is if you could leave the audience with one question to expand their mindset, in this case, a question to expand their mindset, what would that question be?
Who are you?
Mhm.
Like, who are you truly meant to be in this lifetime? If at the end of your life you were able to say, I actually lived my life based on who I am, you're going to be more fulfilled than if you did what society said you should do. Like, who are you? And that will make everything flow to you. Who are you? Who are you meant to be?
Thank you very much, Dr. Matt. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure to have you here after several years of not reconnecting. Nevertheless, I've never lost one day without practicing what we've learned so far.
I appreciate you so much, JJ. Thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
And for everyone who's watching this episode, we had today Dr. Matt James from NLP.com. If you liked this episode, click subscribe here and also share with me the names of other experts in human optimization that you would like to have here in the podcast. Until we meet next time, keep learning, keep optimizing. See you guys.